Can technology solve problems created by technology? If the microphone is anything to go by, no. So let me just very briefly frame the question, frame the dialogue. Tonight is hopefully an interactive session. So as I'm sort of presenting this stuff, I want you to think about it, because I might roam and ask some questions as we go along. So, can technology solve problems created by technology? Well, technology is great. If you are 22 years old, you've got 1,000 friends online. I've never had 1,000 friends ever, offline, online, or paid for. Entertainment is brilliant. It's on demand. I can get anything I want whenever I want it. We actually have a stronger sense of togetherness. So technology really does bring people together. If you're a young person, you're into gaming, 78% of you will say that actually you feel closer to your friends. So whereas an older generation is looking at young people not really doing anything, what they'll tell you is that actually I'm closer to my friends than I've ever been before. Passion, things we love. Travel, fashion, tube stations with no one in, symmetrical breakfasts. There are lots of passions that we share, and if you're on Pinterest, there's 50 billion pins across 1 billion boards. So technology helps us share those passions. It's a wonderful thing. Food, my passion. Put your hand up if you take a photo of food before you eat the food. Okay. So does anybody know what the most photographed food is? Pizza. Curry. Keep going, I'm just chatting. Right? Is that better? You can hear me now? Sorry, did somebody say pizza? Pizza, yeah. 17 billion million references to pizza, absolutely huge, the number one thing that we talk about. Travelling. We basically don't go anywhere without checking it beforehand. I was going to the toilet earlier. I did a review just to make sure that was going to be okay. Absolutely fantastic. Learning. If you are at school at the moment, technology is more available than your teacher. You probably will get actual quality time of about 5 minutes a day with the teacher. The internet, the technology, it's there all the time. What we want to be, our ambition in life, completely shaped by technology. So when I was younger, I wanted to be a model, stroke footballer. That didn't happen. But if you were to ask people what they admire, if you're a young person, you're more likely to admire Mark Zuckerberg than anybody else. There was a survey done last year where, but ahead of Jay-Z, would you believe it? Ahead of Jay-Z, Mark Zuckerberg was named as the #1 person that people aspire to. If you are slightly older and you have an entrepreneurial type nature, then actually you see technology as an enabler to go out, create business, do things that you've never been able to do before. So technology is wonderful. It is making a fantastic difference. Or is it? Screens, attention. We don't really look at anything, particularly at any one point in time. You're supposed to do your joke there. Thank you. See. Ruined it. Our attention is distributed over different screens. We're never truly actually paying attention. Since 2000, our attention span has actually dropped to that of less than 8 seconds. So that's about how long we have before we start thinking about doing something else. Technology isn't helping us really establish ourselves in the world, despite the fact that we probably have more technology to capture what we're doing. We are the least recorded generation there has ever been since the advent of a camera. 44% of people have said that they have lost all of their photos, their images, before they've managed to print them. Our existence is pretty much all in digital. There's very little physical record of us. Coffee. We don't sleep very well. The technology gets in the way there. Maybe we'll talk later about the impact of screens on sort of your physical health and well-being. Bit of a problem. Of course, the more tech there is, the less sleep you get. The less sleep you get, the more you need caffeine. The more caffeine you have, the less sleep you get. It just goes on and on and on in quite a nasty cycle. This one I love. I'm married.
That was short.
Sorry?
Congratulations on being married.
I was hoping for a cheer there, actually, but I can believe it myself. I am married. I do think probably social media helps in one part of my relationship. It's the 38% of married couples who say that the internet is basically reducing the likelihood of their talking to their partner is slightly scary. So its impact on relationships is a bit of an issue. And speaking of relationships, a topic close to many people's hearts. If you are in the business of dating, what you think you're getting from technology is in the middle. And what you're actually getting is on the sides. So it doesn't always match up. And I guess you have to ask the question, is technology really ruining or making dating brilliant? I know we're going to touch on that later. And then you've got this massive problem of actually it's a bit dichotomous because on the one hand, 3D printing makes surgical procedures that were never possible before possible by being able to understand what will happen before you go into surgery. But on the other hand, you have crazy people in Japan printing out guns and trying to kill each other. So technology has that slight problem. So in a world where we are being encouraged to detox from digital, and we have a news story like this one. Is everyone familiar with this? So this is the Australian vlogger who has millions of people following her, who sadly is kind of falling apart in front of our eyes and has taken down over 2,000 pictures of herself and is now saying, this isn't me. In fact, this is awful with me trying to get that picture on the left, which took about 100 photos to get. I hadn't eaten all day, and I'm desperately unhappy, and you see her there. And it's a deeply ironic situation because actually the story of someone stepping away from social media is actually now one of the biggest stories in social media. So in a world where we're saying come away from it because you need to, and we have this kind of situation, it begs the question, can technology solve the problems that it's created? So that's my bit. Now this bit will require some interaction from yourselves. In a moment, I'm going to ask you to indicate at this point in the discussion this evening whether you do think that technology can solve the problems it's created. And if you think that, I would like you to wave a piece of technology and hold it up. And we're going to do a quick count. I hope. Hem gone? Yep, Hem's counting. So just hold it up for a moment. So if you think at this point it can solve it, hold up your tech. Hem, let me know when you're ready. And if you think that technology will not solve the problems it's creating, can you put up a lower tech piece, like your hand? I also accept paper. Fantastic.
Okay.
And what we're going to do, just for fun, is at the end of the discussion, we're going to recast that and we're going to see how much difference there is in opinion. Okay, got it? It's close. So that's the question. It's going to remain on the screen for now. So what I'm going to ask my panel to do is just very briefly, for as long as you wish to, just give us your position on that question. So we've got some sense of where you're coming from, and then we're going to have a look at some questions. I've got some questions. I am genuinely hoping, and this is not one of these sort of panel invite things where I don't really want you to ask a question, but I'm genuinely hoping as we get a little bit further into the debate, people want to ask some questions. So if you do, put up your tech or your hand. I don't mind either. So.
Shall I start?
Yeah.
Right. That's as long as I want to talk about it, so I'll move on. No, I'm joking. As you mentioned earlier on, I'm quite techie anyway. It's quite a hobby, quite an early adopter. So when it comes to problems created by technology, I don't personally think that I have any. Ask anybody else, they may have a different answer. I don't personally think that I have any, so I never really thought about it before. So it's only when they posed the question that I actually started thinking about it, and all these nebulous different thoughts actually started coming together. And if I'm honest, I'm kind of still on the fence, but maybe one leg over on the yes side of the fence in terms of technology can solve the problems. There's a lot of problem is people, thoughts floating around in my head. But from going from not even thinking about it at all to thinking about it more, I've thought about how as fast as technology is progressing, as an early adopter, I don't think about it. There's loads of people that can be kind of left behind who aren't up to speed with smartphones, watches, microphones, anything else, we just leave them behind. I leave them behind and I don't even think about it. So then I'll live my life in a certain way and have expectations of everybody else that they can't then meet. And I look at them like they've got 5 heads. And so there's a bit of a kind of a gap in certain parts of society and countries and socioeconomic groups and all that kind of thing, which I've been thinking a lot more about. And it's led me down more of a kind of a moral route to the question. So hopefully we'll flesh that out a bit today.
Oh, okay. You have to excuse me, I don't normally sound quite so gruff, but I'm losing my voice now. Oh, I'm losing my microphone. Hello? Oh, there we go. I live in a fantasy world. I would like to believe that the microphone is going to work throughout the whole of this. Are we going to have a microphone? So I live in a fantasy world. I live in a world where, having spent all day playing with new tech, flying drones around the office, obviously hoping to avoid flying into people's faces, putting on events like this, that when I get home, I drop my phone in some kind of Faraday cage-like device at the door, I put on a pair of homemade hemp slippers. It's a funny thing.
Mine's working.
I make my own bread, and I sit down in this kind of bucolic image of family loveliness where I'm completely engaged with my girlfriend and my child, and the roaring log fire is going, and it's wonderful. This is obviously a complete lie. This is what I want to happen. The reality is there are elements of that actually do happen. I do have a log fire, I do have a girlfriend and a small child. I probably spend more time with the log fire actually without technology on me than I do with my child thinking about it, which is a bit weird. This is going to really annoy me. Are we? Okay. So here's my problem. I really do believe that there is a place for smartwatches and phones and drones and holographic displays. I also think that it's really damaging. That's not a place for a phone there. But I really think it's damaging things like my home life, the relationship I have with my child, my ability to enjoy the nature, the reason I moved out to Kent in the first place. And yet, I seem to be incapable without, some kind of intervention through technology.
Keep going.
This is just, yeah, brilliant, isn't it?
What's happening?
Your mic's working.
Do they need to sit a bit closer?
No. Would it help if we all had wires directly from our mouths into the machine?
I've turned my watch off.
Okay.
The watch was doing it, so it's not.
So anyway, I clearly have an issue with technology. I clearly want to live a life where there are portions of my life where I can leave it all behind, but I'm not able to do so. And it does lead me to the position that actually maybe I need technology to help me limit my exposure to technology. Maybe I need my Google Watch to know when I've just come home, so that it doesn't keep showing me social media posts and messages from people on Twitter. Maybe I need my smartphone without prompting from me, because frankly, I'm never going to do it. I need it to be the strong one in my relationship and turn itself off. So I guess actually I'm starting from a position which is, yeah, technology has got me to this place. So what's technology going to do to stop me just becoming some kind of Android or other operating systems are available. That's a geek joke there. There you go. So there's my position. Help me, technology.
So despite liking robot starts and tequila at the same time, I'm not in a dream world. My experience of technology and the problems it creates very much every day. I'm a journalist. Technology is eating my job alive. I might be a digital editor though, so then we are trying to find problems to solve that. But we have to spend a lot of time trying to protect the sort of analog side of it. So from that sort of work situation where we're finding sort of small hacks to try and make it, with smaller teams to work better every day and reach more audiences and trying to find new ways. Ultimately, we're also trying to sort of protect something that technology is quite quickly sort of changing. From a home point of view, I'm single, I'm 28, I live in London. Obviously, I'm on Tinder. And the promise of these apps is that it saves time. Like, I'm really busy, I'm always at these things. Oh, it's great, I can just sit there on the train and hopefully try and meet someone. But they create so much admin. So it actually doesn't save time at all. You're sort of having to try and do all these things. And it's ultimately through a messenger. And trying to sort of start a spark with someone through messenger is hideous. Like, everyone's just sort of built this language of banter that isn't real. And you're trying to get to know someone and you just can't. So that's another way. And then also, I love social media. But the story we were looking at earlier is really, really sad. And I think we're going to see more of that, where sort of almost the psychological side of things we haven't got to grips with yet. And I don't know how technology can solve that. I'm just going to read one of her quotes, actually. I was just reading up on it today. And she posed some questions which I think are quite sort of pertinent. So she said, in a world supposedly more connected than ever before, why aren't we seeing rapid positive changes across it? Why isn't our youth waking up each day with a sense of undeniable empowerment to help the world, or even a slight interest in global issues? So someone who was in amongst it all is now just fighting back, which I think is quite interesting. So my view is, I guess, that I think technology can solve some of it, but unless we create situations where we can be faster in our sort of societal, emotional, or cultural acceptance of these changes, there will just be more and more problems.
Great, okay. So for me, I mean, I live sort of surrounded by startups who are creating the next, potentially the next big thing. I'm surrounded by technology and startups doing incredible things every day, from health tech to med tech to social impact and everything in between. And so on one hand, I see this, there's an amazing thing going on where any of the problems that we have in today's world are being solved by technology. So on one hand, I think absolutely tech is solving so many problems, but the other thing, that I see, and I think, also I spend my life on technology and on social media and all of that, and the problem is this always on culture means that we never have any time to ourselves when we're not on tech. I mean, how many of you have been sitting across from your partner or friend at dinner or lunch or whatever, and somebody thinks of you're trying to remember that band that did that song back in the 80s, and it's not even a minute, not even a second goes by before one of them, pulls out the phone and you have to look it up. I mean, we can't even have trivia anymore. You know what I mean? So that's kind of sad. But the thing that really brought it home for me the other day, I was at the Rugby World Cup, one of the matches. I don't know if any of you went there, but my other half is South African, so we were at two few. And one of the matches was in the late afternoon. I left work early to go, and I'm in a new job, as Chris was saying, and so I was checking my messages. Oh, and I've just got an iPhone because I used to work at Microsoft, so my phone, I haven't figured out how to turn off the alerts, and it was buzzing in my bag on my lap the whole time, and I was like twitching.
How quickly did you lose the Microsoft phone after you left Microsoft?
Well, there was a bit of a delay of getting it. I have to say, I miss my Windows Phone. It used to be one of the products I worked on.
That was a cheap shot.
I won't go into that. I do miss it. But anyway. So we're there, and I was checking my messages, and he was really, really upset with me, really annoyed at one point, because he wanted to, he was very excited to bring me into this whole rugby thing, because Americans know nothing about rugby. And he was going to point something out exciting that was happening on the field, and I must have been checking something. And, and at the end, I just thought, God, 2 hours. It's a really quick game. Like, I could have just not looked at my phone for 2 hours. And in hindsight, the point I'm getting to is that this is about living our life in the moment that we're in, and I think that's what's missing. And for me, I don't think that more technology will help us solve that problem. I think there has to be you know, whether you call it boundaries or, you know, safe places or whatever, you know, that can help us do that. I mean, we even have a startup within Mass Challenge that's called Pavlok, and they've got a band that it actually gives you an electric shock when you're, you know, if you've missed your gym appointment, or if you're, you know, if you did something that you weren't meant to do, it actually sets a little electric shock. And I heard about one the other day that's called Catch Up, and you can set it, for example, if you go to dinner with a friend, you can set it not to set it that if you look at your phone within, like, say, a 2-hour time span or whatever you set for it, it fines you and it sends money to some charity. Which I'm not sure if it's a disincentive or not, but, you know, it's just like we can try and create these elaborate ways of getting us to change our behaviors, but I think the only way is to actually be in the moment where we are and change our behavior ourselves. I don't know. That's my tirade.
That last one I like, particularly with the Marc problem, on the getting him to stop talking. Good to know the Americans don't know anything about sports either. So, all quite reasonable positions, all quite good. I have some questions. I will be going to the audience to hopefully get some more. So the first question I have is, what problems do you think technology actually does solve? So what things do we think it's solving in a way that non-technology answers wouldn't have been able to do it?
Well, the biggest one for me, well, for everybody, communication and education. Massive, massive impact on that. Huge. Like, the world is tiny now compared to, I can just get in touch with whoever. It's amazing. And I'm unfortunately, regularly in contact with my cousin in Sydney, who doesn't understand the difference of time zones, and then after she's had a few wines, she's like, Conor, and I'm like, I'm on the way to work. I am not ready for this at all. But just the communication and the education element, I've taught myself Japanese, a little bit of Italian. Don't question me now because I've forgotten it all because I've done something else and it's wiped it completely from your mind. But huge, huge things in communication and education for me.
I think it solves the. No. I think it solved the. I think it solved the problem of wondering how many steps you've taken every day, which I think is something that for many, many years I've often wondered. It's like, have I hit the 15,000 yet?
Is it 15?
But on 10,000, 15,000, okay, 5,000. Actually, you know, just the whole notion of activity tracking, you know, it gives me not all the reason I need to run, but enough of an additional incentive to perhaps get me out the door on days when, you know, maybe I wasn't really feeling like it. Maybe, you know, I still want to maintain the level that I did the week before or the month before, whatever. So, you know, arguably, you know, technology has enabled me to be slightly more active, give me slightly more incentive, and count my steps.
Yeah, I think for me, every part of my life, about sort of quite a high percentage of every part of my life is definitely made better by technology. Shopping, sorting out finances, education, things like finding information. My granddad's on Facebook, it's brilliant. Like, you know, there's just every single way it's made better. But then there is this tiny amount that just sort of, it's almost like my sort of being slow or something is holding me back. But I think almost every part of my life is made better by technology. Definitely health. Like, health apps have completely transformed, like, how much I understand about me and things like that. And, like, if I look at my parents and how much they understand what they consume.
Well, have you ever self-diagnosed on the internet, though?
Yeah, loads of times. I've had all sorts.
That's a really the whole self-diagnosis thing is, you know, causing people to stress and worry about things that, you know, they just shouldn't be worrying about, whilst missing perhaps the kind of symptoms that traditionally would have taken to a GP.
Yeah.
Although on the flip side, you know, telemetry and quantified self enables us to give far more accurate information to doctors. You know, and the potential in the very near future is that alert and, you know, telemetric information will be very. It's difficult, isn't it? Because there's always two sides to every thing.
Have you done that 23andMe thing?
I really want to, but I can't justify the indulgence because it's
it.
basically I'm spending loads to learn more about me. And it's
and then doing that.
Oh, is that the
DNA
DNA
thing?
thing?
DNA thing.
No.
I did do that, and all I learned from it luckily, I guess, all I learned from it was that I have restless leg syndrome.
That's a thing.
You can see
That's
I
not
ask
a
people in
thing.
my
I
office
did this,
about
we were on
that. I've got that.
holiday, and I said that, and my dad just went, no. My mum was like, I knew it was a thing. It's just, but like suddenly you learn all these things, but it's dangerous.
I want a syndrome like that.
Yeah, restless leg.
Restless,
Something like that.
yeah, brilliant.
And it is really interesting, but I sort of didn't find out too much about it, but I guess, for other people, they probably
How
saw
is that
and
going to
it's
affect
sort
you now in your life? I mean, moving
Not-
forward, are there support groups? Are there?
Restless legs.
Yeah, restless legs, yeah, exactly.
I'm watching your legs now to see
I know,
what's
don't talk about it. But yeah, that access to information is actually probably quite, luckily for me, that I saw nothing that I had to worry about, but for other people it must be frightening.
Mm.
How do you deal with that?
I also think just on the travel is another one that's, I think for me has been, the tech has completely changed. Everywhere I go, I travel on Airbnb. I stay in an Airbnb, so my travel experience in a city has completely changed. Like today, I traveled on Ryanair, which by any stretch of the imagination sucks, but I had the app. I went straight through. I didn't have to wait in any queues, except at the gate. And it was very good. So, I think definitely travel's an area where it's been transformative for sure.
Airbnb is quite a good example because in some of these examples where it sort of feels very functional, actually there's something really sort of emotional about what Airbnb's done for travel.
That's right.
I stayed in New York and I stayed in this place where they were really sustainable, and these couple were just so lovely, and I learnt so much about New York and their life and things like that, and it actually changed. It's made it very functional, very easy to travel, but it also just completely made it more emotional and more interesting.
And it's almost like it's a different destination almost because you're seeing it through a different kind of thing rather than this is my hotel key as a card. You've got an actual key. You're going around and seeing all these places. But yeah, travel's a good one as well.
Yeah, and I guess that's the hope, that not only will it sort of make things easier, but actually it will just sort of better the experiences as well on sort of slightly different emotional levels for me. I think not many areas that sort of actually happens yet, like shopping.
Well, on the travel thing, I got really, really excited about the Google Translate app on my watch. Because, yes, I did a little bit of Italian and Japanese and all that kind of stuff. I've lost patience now. I wasn't learning Turkish as well. I'm like, right, I'm just going to download the language file on my phone. I've got it when I'm abroad. I can just type stuff in and then at least make an effort and talk like I'm a local and get more of an experience. And I was really excited that I can just talk into my watch and then tilt it and it translates it. I ended up not wearing it because it's not waterproof and I spend most of the time in the pool, obviously. But all that kind of stuff just breaks down so many barriers. It's fantastic. And you get loads of kudos where there was a bit in Tokyo where I asked for the bill in Japanese and did it in such a good way that you thought he responded back in Japanese, and I had no idea what he was saying. But at least I got that credibility and went, yes, I did it right. So that whole communication, breaking down barriers thing is really cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, next question. Is technology creating new problems that need to be solved? So I'm quite old. Thanks for disagreeing. I am quite old, and I remember when I joined work, we were giving a bleeper. I won't ask people to put their hand up if they know what a bleeper is, but you know who you are. We were giving a bleeper. We used to fax everything. We didn't have emails. The internet wasn't really there. So I genuinely remember a world of significance where technology wasn't present. And now fast forward to this evening, and much of the technology around me works. Notice the tech guy, he's run off, he's at the back there.
He's disassociating himself from it's nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
I didn't, just
So-
walked in off the street.
So from the perspective of somebody who remembers a world that had a lot less technology in it, to a world that now has a lot of technology in it, what's the panel's view around whether the new technology is creating new problems?
I think it's bad that it's almost an unspoken given that you have to opt in to talk to somebody face to face a lot of the times in the workplace. Everybody just does email. Sometimes we're right next to you because everybody wants that safety blanket of having everything documented and say, well, I sent you this email, so therefore I've done my bit. And there's not that as much face-to-face discussion as there should be, which leads to everybody, a lot of office politics, maybe people reading things the wrong way, implying things that weren't even there, and all that bump that didn't really exist if you just went and spoke to the person face to face. And the same kind of thing in terms of interactions with your friends on social media.
Yeah.
I've got friends who live maybe on the other side of the city. Newcastle's not that big a city, you can walk it. All the people can walk it, I'll get an Uber. We could go to the pub, have a conversation about things, but we'll just sit, Facebook message each other, watching Great British Bake Off or something dumb like that. So everybody defaults to just a text-based form of communication, or Snapchat, very important. But apart from relatives on the other side of the world, I'm a Google fanboy, so I don't have any Apple devices. Does anybody FaceTime as a default thing? Or do you do that because the grandma wants to see the grandkids? Or
I talk to my kids on Facebook.
right. Oh yeah, we talked about this. So kids, if it's totally natural for kids, they're fine. But have an adult-to-adult conversation on FaceTime, awkwardest thing ever. Don't know what to say, don't know what to do with yourself. So everybody defaults to this text-based form of communication, which drives pedants like me up the wall because they've all got terrible grammar, and it's really annoying. But we've missed that kind of face-to-face communication. So kids growing up with that same thing, are they going to have any kind of developmental problems in terms of becoming well-rounded, well-adjusted adults? Is there an app for that? I don't know.
Is there an app for your child's development?
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Apart from BBC.
For me, sometimes it's like, I don't know necessarily if it creates new problems in some circumstances, but it kind of amplifies existing problems. So if we're talking about the Instagram model, on her website, she sort of detailed what she was like as a sort of 12 to 15-year-old before she was blogging and vlogging. And she sort of admits that she sought quite a lot of validation from school friends and things like that. And then obviously she took that to the public, and she just couldn't handle the anxiety of like constantly needing likes, and that's, so there was obviously something there, and then it made it worse. And we're sort of learning what this all, this sort of constant access to being able to put something up and getting validation for it will mean. Because it is just on a greater scale than we ever knew at school.
Yeah.
Like we all had that at school. You would take trainers into school or whatever, and everyone go, oh, they're amazing. And you'd feel great for a day. But now it's all on social media, but it's not just your schoolmates, it's everyone, and it's strangers, and they can do all this, and it's like, it's almost not, it's the same problem, it's just worse.
I need to stage an intervention with some of our friends about hashtags. Because they hashtag everything. They try and curate and farm all of these likes and selfie mad and hashtag this, hashtag that. And I'm like, you just hashtagged your own name. And we all just stop and just think about what you've done. You've just hashtagged your own name. Calm down. This is an intervention. So there's that addiction to validation, these micro-transactions of, oh, that's okay. I'm like, oh, I've said something funny. Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
But
That's just when people
what's that going to do?
hashtag it when they're actually saying it out loud, not just.
I am a little bit guilty of that. It's one of those things where you do it ironically, but then it actually becomes something you always say. Hashtag awkward.
I think there's been a lot of research as well about children's interactions with their parents. So children learn their facial expressions. They learn how to socialize with other people through interactions with their parents. But if their parents are actually, their default position is behind an iPad or looking at a screen. I was on the train the other day, and I'm not saying, by the way, I'm not guilty of this, I am. I was on a train the other day, not this bad, and there was a woman sitting there, a kid sitting next to her, had a single headphone as well, so she was clearly listening to music as well as having looking at whatever. And the kid was trying to talk to her, and she was like, oh, what? It's like, oh, it doesn't matter. And she said, no, tell me. And you could just see this weirdly frustrated kind of relationship with the child. But if you take it back to like a 1-year-old, 2-year-old, 3-year-old, they're learning that actually the facial expression that one uses, and there's a joke about, resting bitch face, isn't there? But the facial expression that, you kind of live with on a day is that, because that's the face that, when you're staring at your Facebook on your, that's the slack-jawed look of, complete absorption with a piece of social media. And your kids are learning that. So that's, and there has been, I can't quote them because obviously my ability to retain information without access to Google is appalling now, but, there have been studies that have now shown that children are displaying a less wide range of facial expressions and emotional responses as a direct result of having parents who are too invested in their smart devices. And if that isn't a problem being caused by technology, then
I also guess you might be able to have, routers that can sort of shut off the internet at 10 o'clock or whatever and things like that. But if kids are seeing their parents constantly on email, at some point they're going to go, Yeah, but what are you doing?
Email's more important than me.
Yeah.
The thing is, that's the message. I mean, that's an additional thing as well. The message is, whatever you're doing is more important than whatever I'm doing. And if they then work out later on in their life that whatever they're doing is actually just randomly, oh, well, I've opened my tablet up, I may as well look at Facebook now. That's,
There's a certain extent of that that's always been the case, though, throughout the decades.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
But I mean,
cite an example there of me.
Your dad behind the newspaper or something.
If only my dad at the pub, me not allowed to drink, but then obviously that worked. Parents have always had things where they've been doing other things, whether that's been down the pub or reading the paper to get the horses out or doing the hoover and things like that.
So you would suggest that
it's just a different.
It's a different thing. It's no worse than what it was before.
For that particular element. Well, okay, it's a little bit.
Because I think our default position now, you only have to get into the lift. And unless you've actually got something, I hate awkward lift conversation. Anybody who knows me knows I'm terrible at small talk. I always end up embarrassing myself. But you get into the lift immediately to avoid having to engage with anybody. Everybody flips their phones out. You get on the bus, everybody flips their phones out. Whereas I'm an ex-smoker. It used to be the default that you'd actually light up a cigarette. They give you something to do. Now flip your phone out, and that behaviour translates to your home life as well. Doesn't matter how much you love your kids, you're going to flip that phone out, especially when the Octonauts is on. I've seen them all.
When the what's on?
Octonauts. Anybody? No, just me. There you go, in the room. Represent. Thank you. Captain Barnacles.
It's actually no good asking any parents about the Octonauts because you're probably using this opportunity to sleep. So that's fine. But it was good go, Marc. So
thank you.
So I've got one more question, which I'm going to direct in your direction in a moment, which is around the future. But just to prime the audience slightly, I've got a mic. It seems to me that we shouldn't just be the only people suffering from a bad mic this evening. So I'm going to come round and ask some questions. If I know your name, I may call upon you. So if you want to think of some questions in advance, put your hand up in a moment. That'd be great. But my question, my last sort of structured question before we go to our fantastically engaged audience, in terms of stuff for the future. So we've got this technology. You spend your life in particular sort of helping people to make up more stuff that we should do. What do you think are going to be the technology opportunities and problems that we're going to be able to solve in the future through technology?
Gosh, well, have you got a crystal ball handy? I'll need one of those for that answer. But I think there's so many exciting things happening, especially in the area of healthcare and biotech. There's so much. You talked about printing organs and things like that. There's incredible things going on. We have a company within the Mass Challenge cohort that's just graduated. There's a boy he's 20 years old. He's just come out of university. He's creating an inflatable baby incubator that's going to end infant mortality in developing worlds. And we've got another company that's doing something with this amazing connector on prosthetics that will give people who have prosthetic limbs like a much more comfortable and infection-free life. Just incredible things are happening. So I think that's an area that's really big. But also there's something, an interesting little anecdote. One of the teams has come up with an app that's for blind people. It's called Tingle. It's the Tinder for blind people. And it's and you swipe based on voice. So they record their voice, and then essentially you can find your match based on the sound of their voice. And it's quite a sweet interpretation. So I thought that was a nice example to bring. But I think we'll continue to see more of this kind of invention and ways to solve even the most obscure problems that we didn't even know we had, I suppose.
I think for me, so at the moment, technology is pretty dumb, isn't it? It's like we haven't quite got to any significant point with things like AI, not on an everyday level anyway. And once it starts to be able to sort of learn things and sort of correct itself, then some of these things that we're finding annoying, or even some of these problems that that from a more emotional level might be able to be solved slightly easier. So I think, things like AI for me are quite interesting because it's and the automation of it as well. Because at the moment, there's human error is sort of causing a lot of these issues, and it's going to be scary and interesting. But yeah.
Actually, Charlotte's probably stolen what I was going to say. No, it's fine.
That's what I was
just to build on that, I think the rise of the digital assistant, I think things like Google Now, the Facebook Messenger assistant, and all the work that's being done, and even Cortana, God bless it, sorry. You don't have to be loyal anymore.
That's right.
And Siri, you know, there will come a point where the interface itself will disappear. All of our transactions with technology will be largely through voice or through some kind of visual, you know, kind of non-touchy kind of interface. But I think the really important thing is when the AI stuff, the algorithmic stuff that sits behind it, just intuitively knows when you need that information. And I mean, Google now is a really good example of that. They're working on, you know, this everything button, which when you press it, doesn't matter where you are, what you're doing, it knows because of the contextual kind of information that it's built up around searches you've done, where you are, who you are, what your history is. What do you need when you press that button? You know, and it seems like an impossible dream, but you know, you want something, you don't know what that want is, you press the button, it knows what you want. You know, and that's the kind of, you know, seamless, frictionless interaction that I think technology promises us. The only problem with that is that with so many competing platforms, you know, vying for our attention, that, you know, what's going to control it? What's going to be the referee in the match, you know, for our attention? And I think that's where, you know, either technology will leap to our defense, and we'll have, you know, effectively like a real an ad blocker, but you know, almost like a life blocker or a technology blocker that can mediate our relationship with technology, or we have to become Luddites. You know, we have to have our little Faraday pouches in our pocket to give us 10 minutes of freedom from the constant, you know, constant interruptions of Google telling us what it thinks we need at any given moment.
For me, to build on the AI thing, I know it's obviously a thing that's said a lot, but from a transport perspective particularly, we've got systems, projects that are in place where we've got machine automated train signaling systems that are going to be on, which just that alone is going to potentially maybe double the amount of services we can run, because it's so much more reliable in the signaling and managing the capacity on the infrastructure that we've got, which is limited, that we can actually then increase the number of services we can run, because it's a lot more
we've got the DLR in London, right? Just,
I'm not, yeah, that's not me.
just
So
saying.
that kind of thing, the whole machine learning, automation, artificial intelligence element, I think the biggest thing is going to be not the stuff that we find really annoying, which is in our control now, like bad manners at the dinner table or not maintaining good relationships at work or with friends. It's going to be things like better traffic management in the city. The fact that maybe you don't even have to drive, so you don't have to bite your wife's head off on the drive down to see the World Cup or something like that. Better relationships with your kids, better use of your time because you're spending it better. All of those tiny little things where it'll just smooth out all those little bumps that you just accepted as human life.
What do we do with all this time, though? You know, so many things are being touted as labor-saving, time-saving devices. We should have so much time now.
Yeah.
But what do we fill that time with?
Netflix?
Yeah.
Again?
Netflix?
Yeah.
Yes, I am still watching this program. Stop asking me. Netflix.
Labor-saving
that kind of thing.
devices. You know, we should be, you know, living unparalleled lives of, you know, leisure and luxury. But we're
Which,
not.
once they start doing 3D printing food and clothes and organs, sorted.
That's it. That's when we stop.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But then who delivers the stuff that you print with?
Robot cars.
But then who does the electricity that fuels the cars?
Robot electricity.
Perfect. And then the Matrix happens and we all die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then we're batteries.
There was a startup the other day at our word ceremony in Boston. They said the only ones who aren't on the internet now are cows. And this company is called like Bove Control, I think that's the name of it. And they're creating the internet of cows.
Brilliant.
So essentially it's for farmers to help, you know, they know when the cow needs to be fed and all these different things and where they're at the field.
Please tell me they have Twitter
But
accounts.
it was one of the best quotes I heard that night, the internet of cows. That's a new one.
Brilliant.
The Internet of Cows, you heard it here first. Wow. So, oh my God, we're off. So let's see whether it works for you.
No.
Not so much.
Shout.
Yes.
Okay, listening to this, I think, are we not too precious? We have this rosy view of a halcyon day when people came home and they talked to their kids. My grandfather was a coal miner. During the Second World War, he worked double shifts, six days a week to mine coal for battleships. My great-grandparents lived through the Great Depression with 13 kids. My great-granddad lost his job. They had a lot of leisure time there. They weren't really happy. You know, we've got all these, we think these people didn't have neuroses, psychoses, whatever. Like you, I'm old enough to remember when, 24-hour television was going to ruin us. Sunday trading was going to ruin family life. We wouldn't sit down and have dinner like family. I think my point is, can technology save problems related to it? whatever. Like, shit, I'm back 6 years. But now I'm just so used to like using my Google Maps, arrive places. People solve the problems that much better.
But do you think, though, that with the exponential change of I agree with you. I think that people are incredibly adaptable. I think that we have kept a pace with the things that we've created, but we're not seeing what's the word? Technology used to sort of pootle along at a relatively consistent rate, but now things are actually accelerating so fast. Will there come a point? Are we at that point where our ability to incorporate and adjust to these new marvels and miracles is actually diminished? And we are finding it harder to continue to be human beings and continue to have all of the social things that make us functioning members of society.
I think it's maybe created a problem of dependency, as you've just mentioned about the whole maps thing, and what you mentioned about ability to retain knowledge now. I barely use my long-term memory anymore. Just kind of, what was that thing again? The whole trivia thing? Just find out straight away.
Calculators ruined our ability to do mental arithmetic. Mobile phones stopped us remembering phone numbers.
No.
And smartphones have stopped us remembering anything. We now outsource our diaries, our friends' names and addresses. I mean, anybody again who knows me, I don't know anybody's names. I barely remember my own name. We've outsourced our ability to remember trivia, and I used to pride myself on my knowledge of pointless and useless facts, but now people are fact checking me and realizing that I was lying most of the time. We are losing those cognitive functions. I'm not saying it's not being replaced by something else, the ability to use all this, but we're users of technology, we're not creators of technology, by and large.
Sam, would you mind shouting?
Not at all. I agree with your point that humans solve problems created by technology. I think the question is wrong anyway, because 99% of the debate has been about modern technology. About modern technology, not technology per se, which could be the stone wheel or the club or whatever it might well be. But since you've gone down the angle of modern technology, it brings me back. I agree, it's humans, and it brings me back to Duncan Ballantyne, I think his name. He's not on Dragon's Den anymore, but a young inventor came in front of him and front of us at Vodafone, none of them are here today, so I can say. And they got a new. Sorry, Chris, they're not here, so we can say.
But we are recording this, Sam. So,
No one will watch it. They can't hear it.
And in fairness, he's not mic'd up, so it'll just be a...
And they're creating a new thing where in your house you can beam and boost signals and stop children watching things for certain periods of time and different devices. You can send your child 2 hours on this, 2 hours on that. And I'm blessed to have many children in some respects. But Duncan Ballantyne said to the inventor, I can't do a Scottish accent, let alone an English one. But he said he threw the inventor out because as far as he was concerned, technology wasn't there to solve that. And he would go into one of his, I think he has 6 children. I might be making this up. And he would go into the room and just tell them to switch that shit off. And if I'm in the countryside and I go for a walk with one of my children, invariably there will be a phone on that walk, even though we try and take them through the metal detectors. And you see a thistle or a thing or whatever, and you say, there's a thistle, that's spiky, touch it. But they won't touch it, they'll Google it and try and discover that experience through somebody else's eyes. And I find that incredibly sad. But I think it's, there it is. I think it's up to us to do it. But equally, I'm not...
But do you think people are actually doing it, though?
I'm still going, Marc.
I know, but you will. You're going to go all night, Sam. So I think it's behold. Well, so they say. Yeah, it's true. Yeah. I've got the microphone. You haven't.
I think they're listening to me.
No, they're not.
I just think it's very, very sad that we can't switch it off, and we're a generation that can remember before when you could switch it off, and I just think it's up to us to teach that next generation as they go through it that it's not the be-all and end-all. The last part of that, Marc, if I may, is that who would ever stand in front of anybody and say that technology isn't, I think we need more volume on that as well. The technology that makes a prosthetic hand for a child in Africa or creates a medicine or whatever it might well baby bar, a baby bed that prevents whatever. No one's going to dispute that, but I think it's up to us to explain to children the pleasure of the physical over the technological. And we need both in our lives, but it's up to us as adults to teach the next generation that. And if I had a mic, I'd now drop it. Make some noise.
Well said.
Thank you,
Well said.
Sam.
That was very
Thank
good.
you.
Is that long enough?
That was good padding. Was there a question? No, I'm teasing. That was wonderful.
I can add to that. I've got another example of, I guess, how that kind of fits is if I think about my job and sort of how we look at content. And I trained as a journalist just about when the internet was sort of ruining it for us. But I sort of, we were trained in sort of ethics and sort of finding a story and, looking at sources and going through a sort of rigorous process before you write a story. And now you're sort of beholden to these stats. And, it's like, yeah, but if you write 5 things that and everyone will read it, so don't spend a week researching something that 300 people will read. And so you kind of get to this point where you're sort of looking at all this data and you do just have to stop and say, yeah, but some of this other stuff's really important. I don't care that hardly anyone reads it. And so we've now got to a point where, it's our decision and we've taken responsibility for the fact that we might have to drop some traffic somewhere, but, it's worth just being responsible and doing some of these things rather than being beholden to whatever we think is right because technology tells us it's right. So I think people in some areas, you're starting to get a bit of common sense applied to things. And common sense.
So it's taking the responsibility for using it and using it in the right way.
Yeah.
Which is we talked about this before, but on social media where I've got zero patience for friends who bitch about Facebook saying, oh, Facebook's crap, I hate it. Why is Facebook crap? So many people on it talking crap. Unfollow them, delete them. Oh, yeah, but use it properly or don't use it. That's your options. Otherwise, you're just going to sit and bitch about it, and you're going to look like an idiot because you're not really taking responsibility for the technology that you've reaping the benefits of and using. And that applies to all of it, really, from everything from wheels to clubs to 3D printers to social media.
Cool.
So it's, again, the people problem thing.
Brilliant. I've got 2. Got one here. All right.
Thank you very much. So I think the provocation is, what if technology doesn't solve the problems created by technology? Are we drifting towards a dystopian future, like as it's portrayed in Charlie Brooker's Black Mirror, for example? And I think that's a scary future. So can you just give me your views on what happens if it doesn't happen, if we don't solve the problems created by technology?
Do we have an example of one that is created by technology that it isn't solving?
I still think that I don't entirely agree with Sam. I still think that there are some people who can take responsibility and know it, but I think the vast majority of people aren't thinking in those terms. And I think that the effect of technology on the way that we interact with our friends and our children and our relatives and our colleagues and our co-workers, I think is something that most people don't apply common sense to and don't have self-control over. If people did have self-control, then we wouldn't need public information campaigns for health, and eating and fitness and driving not like an idiot, all that kind of stuff.
Do you think we're going to be sort of diverting money from those sorts of campaigns to like stopping people using technology and things?
Only if they can actually put a figure against the the impact it's having on the economy or health or whatever. I think then if it becomes an issue in that sense, but. I just don't think you can rely on people to exercise self-control. So in terms of a dystopian future, Charlie Brooker, I think, has been fairly good at articulating, what the world would look like if people are, either viewing the world through the eyes of others or sitting in pods just communicating with each other for, in return for e-vouchers that they can spend on food.
I don't think it's going to be that bad. But then I would say that. But no, the examples that we've talked about, that we've seen in the modern technology, the whole social media thing, it comes down to etiquette at the end of the day, doesn't it? What is and what isn't acceptable behaviour? What isn't good parenting? All that kind of stuff.
It's so subjective, though, isn't it?
Well, yeah, but one thing that humans are quite good at is looking down on other humans for doing things we don't think they should be doing and letting them know about it.
And sharing it on social
also
media.
now on the internet and sharing it on social media. So there's that social shaming element that I think should hopefully keep us all on the right track.
I interviewed a robot a couple of months ago called Bina48. I don't know if you've heard of her, but she's basically she's a robot that is made up of memories and opinions of a real person, and then the sort of machine learning algorithm has then essentially turned her into a sort of new person. She sort of moved away from the original sort of thoughts and opinions. And you ask her about things, and particularly it's interesting to ask her about, what do you think the future is and your place in the future. And she believes, and it gets quite weird, because she does believe that robots can be better than humans because humans are flawed. But she's very sort of moral about it, and she seems to, she sort of believes that you can actually program for a better future.
I love that you've given her a human pronoun.
I know.
Like, she believes this.
She's
She told me personally.
flirting. She was so human. Oh, it's
Sassy.
weird. Yeah, we've got videos. There's videos on websites. It's really weird. But yeah, it's almost that sort of, she had a kind of a moral view on things, and it's interesting that technology can almost have that, what you're saying. It's kind of that right from wrong. She seemed to, well,
Could
she's
possibly,
programmed
yeah,
from a
could
human.
possibly do it in a lot clearer way.
Yeah.
So it goes back to the thing that if we can't exercise self-control, or we can't recognise when we're going down a path which is, destroying elements of our, kind of social interaction in society, maybe we can rely on technology to be our guides and be our conscience.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to try. I've got three questions, quick questions though. I'm going to try the mic thing because maybe Adam's onto something, so hang on a sec. If we do all three questions and then see who wants to answer them.
So it's clear from what everyone's saying that we all know that we should take more responsibility, personal responsibility for the social problems that technology brings. And we've used words like addiction and dependency, which makes me think of alcohol and tobacco and drug industries, where the producers themselves are forced to take responsibility and help us help ourselves. So my question is to what extent the panel thinks the producers of technology, be that Facebook or Apple or Google, should be forced to take responsibility to save us from ourselves.
So the first question is, which we'll answer in a moment, is it Facebook's fault?
So mine's not so much a question as a sort of asking your opinion. I think it's really interesting, the story about the model on social media who's removed herself from it this week. She's almost solved her own problem using technology by technology, which is really strange. So she's gone on social media to say, I'm coming off social media, and look at the fuss she's created. I mean, I've probably felt similar pressures of social media in the run-up to a trip that I've just done, which was 7 days hiking in the Grand Canyon with absolutely no signal or phone whatsoever. I had no running water, for instance. I think that solved my problems much better than going on social media and saying I'm coming off Facebook. I'd just like to know your opinion on that and what sort of technology could solve her problems, or indeed can it at all?
So bad holiday experiences. One last one from Alex.
So I just wanted to add to Adam's doomsday scenario, and I felt he didn't get the chance to put the doomsday scenario into it. Arguably, technology has spurned the world of haves and have-nots, and a world of clashing ideologies. And by that, I'm talking about things like the Arab Spring uprising, people aspiring to Western civilization, and we look at the big problems like the migrant crisis, terrorism, homegrown terrorism, and I guess it's a big question, but I kind of wanted to add to Adam's question really and pose that question around, can technology solve some of these bigger societal shifts in our world?
So the world is doomed. The world is doomed, and the robots will save us. So 3 questions. Who wants to go for it?
Can I jump on the first one, which I'm actually going to merge a little bit with the third one? But completely agree with this. Is what kind of I was angling at the beginning when I said I've ended up at a bit of a moral perspective on it, because it's modern technology completely obviously changed the world, most of the world, not all of the world, which is kind of what I'm getting at. You've got generations within families of people being left behind because they don't understand how to use different systems, being left out of various different interactions. You've got Western civilization storming ahead with all the advances we've got, the communication, this luxury lifestyle, because we can order things off Amazon, they arrive the next day. They were built for tuppence from some poor guy in a warehouse on the other side of the world because our currency is worth so much more, because we've got this huge service-based economy and we just get whatever we want. And we've left so many people behind. And I think from a Western perspective, people using all the technology, things like what we've mentioned already about Google Now and Siri and breaking down the learning curve that you need to approach to get involved in this big fancy technological party that everybody's having, that's great for us. But then when you're talking about things like Project Loon with Google and extending internet access all the way around the world to people who maybe wouldn't have had it before, who wouldn't have had access to the same education, who've maybe had their access to media restricted by different kind of governments to get access to everything else. These big IT companies and technological companies have made so much money off the back of our own human failings of sitting glued to the device and everything else. So we've taken a little bit of a personal toll on it, whether we're aware about it or not. And I think they've got the ability, but also the obligation to help correct some of those problems. Although I'm sure they're only extending the internet access to get more profiling data, but still, there's some benefits to be had there. And then that whole part about different parts of the world having so vastly different kind of qualities of life, the huge big migrant crisis, it's not just technology that's done that, but we've marched ahead with all the benefits that we've got and left a big gap between rich and poor in different countries. So I'm going to get my soapbox, and it's a little bit of a socialist and not a nationalist. We're all one big planet full of people, and we've got to bring everybody along at the same speed, or you're going to have people who haven't had the things you've had banging on your door saying, I want a bit of that. So it's about evening out all of that, which hopefully we'll be able to do.
But I think that there's a lot of interesting things happening, to try and solve, problems that are uniquely going on in developing countries, et cetera. I saw a startup the other day who's got it's just an SMS-based question and answer service for women in countries where they don't have proper internet access, and they also don't have anyone to ask, kind of personal questions to, health related or related to their cycles or whatever it might be. And so they finally now have a resource where they can ask a simple question that they can't ask because it's taboo in their society or whatever. So simple things like that to microlending or other services that are helping these people in these countries get access to money or be able to change money or lend money, or if we have families who have family members who've traveled to another country to earn money to send back to their families in these other countries. There's so many companies now that are emerging, whether it's TransferWise or others. I met one the other day at Web Summit who's doing this. So those kinds of things. But also another example is we've been approached at Mass Challenge by a guy in Israel who wants to create a sort of an accelerator program where it's completely focused on, devoted to people who actually want to solve the peace problem or try and create peace, and that they're going to come together to come with ideas from different parts of the Arab and Israeli world to solve the problems that the world is facing. So that starts to get into some really serious and interesting kind of uses of collaboration, and is it a technology solution or other kind of solution? But the fact that people are thinking about this and proactively doing it is pretty amazing.
I think what's interesting about holding people at the power players, the companies behind the technology, that's different from when this has happened before. So tobacco companies or booze companies, things like that, is the access to information now. They're the things that they're producing, the things that they're profiting from, is actually causing consumers to be a lot more savvy than ever before. So they almost have to sort of be involved in sort of working together and making sure this doesn't happen. It's sort of, I don't know, I think where some of these things have happened before, where you've had to look at the people sort of profiting from what's going on and force them to take responsibility, it's almost, I think we're at a slightly different place. Maybe we will have to come to a point where you have to say to Facebook or Google, it's your fault, you have to do something about it. But hopefully people are empowered enough for there not to have to be the types of intervention there's been before.
The problem with that is, and everybody accepts or believes that there is potentially a problem. Not everybody, but there is a general acceptance that there is a problem, that we are spending too much time on social media. But how do you quantify that? What is too much? You know, where can you actually prove that damage is being done? And until you can, yeah, exactly, who decides it? You know, and actually most people who don't give a great deal of thought to the effect that it's having on them or their relationships would say, well, no, we're pretty happy with it. We're pretty happy spending, you know, the whole evening chatting about X Factor. I mean, watching X Factor in itself is probably a problem that needs to be addressed. So if you can't even do that, then you certainly can't hold a company to account for the damage that it causes, because what damage? You know, tobacco is easy, kills people. Booze kills people. Cars kills people. You know, lots of things kill people. Social media, makes you a bit of a dick. You know, I mean, and you know, you can't legislate for you know, otherwise I'd be out of a job probably, but you can't legislate for being a bit of a douchebag. You know, what social media does to you.
You may still be out of a job.
Thank you. That's how we start every single day.
So, what I like to do now, because we're at that time, and I don't know if I can stand this microphone thing any further. I would like to recast the vote. So do you remember at the start we voted, and what I asked everyone to do initially was put up some tech if you think that technology can solve the problems created by technology. So let's see where people are.
I'm doing two.
Oh no, hands
Yeah.
one of each.
Okay. And if you think the reverse, if you think technology will not solve the problems created by technology, please place your non-tech hands up.
There should probably be an additional poll, which is who thinks that there are even technology problems to be solved by technology? Have I just spoilt your denouement?
Yeah, we're not doing that.
Okay, fine.
Hem, sorry, did you get that? Okay. We're not going to tell you. But what we are going to do is put it on the hashtag. So we're going to see the main change. I've never been in this bar longer without having a drink. I suspect you feel the same. I just want to thank the panel formally for everything that you've done. Diane, Charlotte, Conor, and even Marc for a contribution. A really good discussion. My huge apologies that the mics didn't work. I'm sure we'll sort it out for next time. But perhaps everyone would join me in showing a little bit of appreciation.
Can I just add as well, this marks the end of the Expo, 2 days. There's a whole list of people who have worked incredibly hard to get Expo right. One of them is at the back there, Hem. Victoria's in the audience. There's a whole bunch of people. Like I said, I'm not, you know, I think when you start listing people who've worked on things, you always forget somebody. So sorry for anybody who's, you know, most people who aren't going to be mentioned. But it's been a really brilliant couple of days, really made by the fact that so many people attended and so many people worked so hard on it. So thank you very much, Hem, Victoria, and anybody else who's in the audience who worked on Expo over the last couple of days.